all of the greatest vessels of the British Royal and Merchant Navies were gathered together for the largest fleet review in British history, all assembled as part of the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Victoria. Through the orderly and dignified pageantry, a small vessel weaved between the great ships, evading the patrol boats of the Royal Navy. Speeding through the flotilla of ships and escaping capture, the little boat named Turbinia had smashed all previous speed records, as it neared its maximum of 34 knots. With a 20-foot flame shooting out of its funnel, Turbinia had effectively caught the attention of the royals and dignitaries attending the event, igniting curiosity about its steam turbine engines and changing the course of engine technology forever. Charles Parsons had been looking to build a steam engine more efficient than the traditional triple expansion engine, but also one that was faster. In 1884, he invented the modern steam turbine. A traditional triple expansion engine uses high-pressure steam that powers a small cylinder that exhausts into an intermediate pressure cylinder, which then exhausts into one or two low-pressure cylinders, utilizing the natural three-phase expansion of steam in an effort to get the maximum power output. The steam turbine engine that Charles Parsons had created operated similar to a pinwheel. High-pressure steam was forced into the turbine, which rotated several blades directly attached to a propeller shaft. The sheer speed at which the blades rotated gave the engine an unmatched level of torque. British Admiralty was kept updated by Parsons' developments. If his new invention proved successful, then it would be considered for use in the Royal Navy. The Turbinia was constructed at Brown & Hood in Wallsend-on-Tyne, northern England. Brown & Hood was not a shipbuilding company, but rather a sheet metal fabrication facility. Despite their lack of experience, Turbinia was well built and would make history as the world's first steam turbine-driven ship. It measured 32 meters long, which is about 105 feet, and 2.7 meters wide, or about 9 feet in width. They launched the vessel on the 2nd of August, 1894, but at that time, the boat only had one propeller, driven by a single turbine, and it performed poorly during its trials. British Admiralty was not impressed. They watched as the boat vibrated violently, and by the end of the trials, the propeller had become misshapen due to the issue of cavitation. Cavitation was a phenomenon that was only just being investigated. It hadn't been seen affecting too many vessels because standard steam cylinder engines didn't usually spin propellers fast enough to cause cavitation. So what is cavitation, you ask? Well, you see, propellers driven by a steam turbine turn with such speed that the blades of the propeller can actually create little vacuum bubbles on their surface. When these little vacuum bubbles collapse, the force of the surrounding water can hammer at the propeller's surface, causing pitting, which only worsens the issue of cavitation, eventually wearing away the propeller entirely. This necessitated the development of more hydrodynamic propellers, which can cause less cavitation to happen. During the years of redevelopment on Turbinia, Charles Parsons gave it 3 turbines, which each drove a propeller shaft fitted with 3 sets of custom-engineered propellers, for a total of 9 screws. The vessel was refloated for its new trials. This time, British Admiralty was not present. After the previous disaster, they were not convinced that steam turbines would ever exceed the usefulness of steam cylinder power. But Charles Parsons was determined to prove them wrong. They fired up Turbinia's 3-drum coal-fired water tube boiler to its maximum pressure of 200 pounds per square inch, and took the small steamboat out to open water. The little boat reached a top speed that surpassed Cunard's RMS Campania, which held the record for the fastest ship in the world, with a top speed of 23.5 knots. The Turbinia, however, could run circles around it at 34.5 knots. Charles approached the British Admiralty about allowing them to inspect the vessel and watch it perform. Unfortunately, they didn't have the patience. They were convinced after seeing the previous failed attempt that steam turbine technology would always be inferior to steam cylinder piston engines. They scoffed at his request for an audience and effectively ignored him. Parsons realized that if he wanted their attention, he would have to steal it with a spectacle most unorthodox. On June 26, 1897, a Navy review would be held at Spithead in Portsmouth, where 165 vessels of the Royal and Merchant Navies were put on display for Queen Victoria, and would be inspected by the Prince and Princess of Wales acting in her stead. The event was part of her Diamond Jubilee and would be attended by members of the British royal family and foreign dignitaries. It would be the largest pageant of British naval might that had ever been displayed, and it was a perfect event for Charles Parsons to make a bold statement. Parsons and his crew carefully moved Turbinia down the coast from Newcastle to Portsmouth, being careful not to allow the public to catch sight of the vessel prematurely or to alert the British Admiralty of their plan. The maneuver they conspired to perform would certainly lead to arrests and possible charges against them, but Parsons later explained, "If you believe in a principle, never damage it with poor expression. You must go the whole way. I had to startle people." It was a clear summer day. The dreadnoughts were carefully lined up and decorated with signal flags. The royal yacht Victoria and Albert was slowly making its way through the procession, allowing the Prince of Wales to inspect the ships and salute the officers and crew from a distance. Nearby, small Navy pickets patrolled the waters, chasing away any small boats that came too close, but one would race past them with immense speed. From behind a French vessel, the Turbinia broke into the procession, flying past the royal yacht and quickly overtaking them. Parsons ordered full speed, and at that, the little steamer bolted across the water, weaving between the military ships and evading capture from several pickets that struggled to keep up. The Prince of Wales was caught off guard, but watched the chase unfold with a curious eye. With one last evasive move, the Turbinia made its way for the harbor, leaving a large wake that nearly swamped the remaining picket behind her. She safely made her way to the companionway of RMS Teutonic, where father and son Thomas and Bruce Ismay awaited the arrival of Charles Parsons for a trial run on his new turbine-driven boat. Prince Henry of Prussia had signaled that he wanted to speak with Parsons about the Turbinia, and after the review, the Prince of Wales also inquired about a tour of the vessel. A journalist from the Graphic reported, "The Turbinia, the fastest vessel in the world, advertised itself in the most audacious manner by darting, or rather flashing, hither and thither after the royal procession." The Times wrote, "Her lawlessness may be excused by the novelty and importance of the invention that she embodies." Indeed, the risky stunt that Charles Parsons had performed proved to be a triumph. After further speed and power demonstrations attended by the Admiralty, Parsons was able to establish the Turbinia works at Wallsend. He then constructed turbine engines for two Navy destroyers, HMS Viper and HMS Cobra, which were both launched in 1899. Cunard Line was designing two superliners, Lusitania and Mauretania, and intended to use Parsons turbines to make them the fastest ocean liners in the world, but they needed a proof of concept. At the time, two smaller Cunard ships were under construction, Coronia and Carmania. It was decided that the Coronia would continue with the installation of its triple expansion engine, but Carmania would receive the turbine engine instead. As it turned out, Carmania achieved an average speed of 1 knot faster than Coronia, using the same amount of fuel. This may not sound like much, but when crossing an ocean, that can cut a voyage down by several hours. The successful test won Parsons the contract to build his largest turbine engines yet, specifically for Lusitania and Mauretania, the latter of which would hold the coveted blue ribbon for 19 years. When Mauretania was completed, Turbinia was brought alongside her for publicity photos. She then escorted the ocean liner on her way out to sea, though engine trouble prevented her from following Mauretania the whole way. Parsons' steam turbines would become the blueprint for future steamship technology, which would eventually become almost exclusively the engine of choice for fast ocean liners and naval vessels. The fastest ocean liner of all time would be the SS United States, which used 4 Westinghouse turbine engines, thrusting the ship at its maximum record speed of 38.32 knots. Steam turbines are still used today in power plants. Usually, a fuel source like coal, petroleum, or even heat generated by a nuclear reactor will boil the water to create steam, which powers a modern turbine, the design of which dates back to the original creations by Charles Parsons. And it was a steam turbine that laid the groundwork for the invention of the gas turbine, which today is commonly known as the jet engine. In 1908, Parsons Company, now called the Marine Steam Turbine Company, decided to slow down the deterioration of the vessel by taking it out of the water and kept it stored inside the company's building. In 1926, the boat was offered to the London Science Museum, which required the vessel to be cut in half because the entire boat could not fit inside the original exhibit hall. In 1961, the museum put the ship back together to display it in the Newcastle Municipal Museum of Science and Industry. However, in 1994, it was moved to their Museum of Science and Engineering, which is now known as the Discovery Museum. And there she sits today, the world's first speedboat and the first modern steam turbine propulsion system. With such confidence in his ability, Charles Parsons declared a new future for marine propulsion technology. Risking his business and his freedom on a publicity stunt, he had successfully convinced the world of his creation. Though steam turbines are rarely used anymore, there was a time which this revolutionary technology had dominated the seas and inspired technology for air travel, all thanks to this speedy little steamship, Turbinia.